Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. And we're on second canto, chapter 2, text 5, right?
Yes.
Oh, this is one of those great verses. And I mean, there's a lot of great verses, but this is Shonaka. Shonaka is, of course, the leader of the sages of Naimisharanya. And he asks the question to Sutta, or he comments, just like Parikshit asked questions of Shuka or comments. So with the sages, when Sutta is speaking, then the person that sort of interacts with him is Shonaka. And he speaks amazing verses. The last one was, he's basically saying that the one can simply take up what we would consider an extremely austere ascetic life, because after all, it's like, for example, let's say you own a coat, you just hang it up in the closet. You don't have to give it a lot of attention, sort of keep it clean, you just hang it up in the closet. So he's saying, same with the body. If you actually, Krishna gives the example in the Gita that vasansi jirnani jatavihaya, just like you discard old clothes and worn out clothes, so similarly the body, you take a new one. So basically, Shonik is saying it's just some external thing. So he says in the previous verse, Satyam Shito Kinkashipo Priyasire, when the Prabhupada said when there are ample earthly flats to lie on, when the earth is there, literally it just says when the earth is there, of course, as Prabhupada mentioned, people do tend to lie on flat surfaces. So when the earth is there, what with Kashipu, endeavors for Kashipu, which means cushion, like a pillow. So just like in the James Bond movie Goldfinger, so here there's gold cushion, or, you know, he used the same theme song with her gold pillow. And so what's the use of a pillow or a cushion and endeavoring for that, spend your time getting money to buy one when the earth is there. Bahos Siddhe. And when the arms are self sufficient, why do you need a bed? You just lie in your arms. Satyangelo king. And when you have the palms of your hands, why do you need utensils? And yeah, why do you need spoons and forks and knives when you've got your hands? And dig velkalado, and in the open space when there's the skin of trees, why do you need clothes? So this is a pretty austere lifestyle. And there are trees actually. There's one tree in California. I think a lot of the trees in California come from Australia, like the eucalyptus, and there's one called the paper tree. And it's very interesting because we had some next door to us when I lived in Beverly Hills. You sort of peel it off like big sheets of it, and it's called they call it the paper tree. And so, of course, this is a very austere lifestyle, which of course we couldn't do today. So what we can do is not everyone, after this class, just take all your clothes and give them away or something, because that'll obviously be problematic. But the spirit of it, I think what we really need to take here is the spirit of it. So he's continuing along this same line of reasoning, and he says, Chirani King Patina Santi, which is a rhetorical question, aren't there sort of rags, worn out clothes on the path, pati, on the path, just on the road? Don't you find people, sort of throwing clothes away? Chirani King Patina Santi Dishanti Bhiksham, and do people not give bhiksha, which means charity, like alms? Uh, Naivangri pa parabrata saritopya sushan. Are there not angripa, literally foot drinkers? Because angri means foot and pa means drinking. So, I mean, there are all kinds of clever words in Sanskrit. So, one word for tree is angripa, foot drinker. So, are there not indeed foot drinkers who parabrata, and because the trees are parabrata, they maintain others. If you think about the trees give shade, they give fruits, they give flowers, they give, wood for building. So they're parabrit, or the plural of your parabrita. Bear, literally like the English word bear, brita, they maintain others. And Saritopya Shushan, the rivers dried up. Rudha Guha, are the caves blocked? Because there you get shelter. Obviously, you need shelter from the wind, from the rain. And so people would, the serious ascetics would just go to caves where you get, wind shelter, rain shelter. And even if you put a little fire, the beasts sort of, stay out of the way of beasts who are wandering around at night. So he asks, Rudha Guha Kim, are the caves blocked? Like you can't get into caves anymore? And then Ajito Vati no Pasanan. And does Ajita, Krishna, which literally means the unconquered, this is in the same root as the word Jaya. Jaya is like victory, and it's from the root G, J-I. And so Jita means conquered, and Ajita is unconquered. So does Ajita, doesn't he still, Avati, doesn't he still maintain, or does he not? Actually, not. Does he not maintain the surrender? So upasanna, literally those who have sort of approached him for shelter. Does the unconquered one not sustain those who have surrendered to him? Kasmat, therefore, if all these things, in other words, considering all these rhetorical questions, kasmat, which means for what reason, bhajanti kavayo, the so-called sages are flattering those who are dhana dur mada andhan. So I'll break this word for you. Anda, the last part, andhan, is just the plural accusative, the object of the verb. But the anda means blind. Just like Om Agyana Timiran Dhasya. So Timira is darkness, and Timira Andha, blinded by darkness. Because even if your optical nerve is working, when the lights go out, if it's really just, there's just total darkness, then we're all blinded by it. So Timiranda, blinded by darkness. And what is that darkness? Agyana, the darkness of ignorance. So it's very nice. Oh, Agyana Timira Andhan. Om Agyana Timiran Dasya. One who has been blinded by the darkness of ignorance. Gyanangjana Shalakaya, mistranslated as a torch of knowledge. Uh, you heard that?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's actually not what it means. Uh, Gyanangjana Shalakaya. Shalaka, the word shalaka in Sanskrit doesn't mean to give someone a good shellacking, but shalaka means a what do you call it? It's like a cosmetic brush you used to put something like eyeliner on.
Okay.
I mean, I personally don't do that. It's got bad press. But anyway, so a shalaka is like a little brush you use to apply ointment. And so anjana is eye ointment. So it's Gyanangjana Shalakaya. So with that little brush that has the ointment for the eye, that Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyanangjana Shalakaya Chachuru Umilitam. Umilitam means opened, but especially for the eyes. And there's two words, ni milita and milita. So ni milita means the eyes are closed, and milita means the eyes are open. So chakshur militam, my eyes have been opened. Jena, by whom? Tasmayan, to that person. So the person by whom my eyes were opened, to that person. Tasmai Sri Gurave, to the Guru Namaha. I bow. So I thought, since that's chanted a lot, you should know what it literally means. So here we have the same word, anda, blind. So durmada. Durmada means just extreme foolishness. Foolishness or just being crazy, just being foolish. And so those who are blinded by their own foolishness, madness, and which comes from dana, money. And dana, of course, means not only just currency, but it also means just, valuables, just things that are considered valuables. Dana can also mean treasure. So because the people go just mad after wealth and valuable possessions, and this blinds them. And so why should the kavayo is just the plural of kavi. And so why should the sages flatter these people? Why should the sages just sort of, butter up, as they say, or flatter people who are blinded by their attachment to material possessions? Why should they do that when they can just take advantage of nature to live? Of course, at this age, I suggest you not walk around, let's say, this city in tree bark. Or, of course, if you just sleep out on the earth, you'll probably be arrested. So we know that times have changed, but the spirit of this still is completely valid. If we can just live simply and not have to flatter foolish materialistic people to try to get money from them, either by selling them something or just getting donation. And then you see that, frankly, money talks. Nobody, well, anyway, don't want to get too controversial here, but you see how many Hare Krishna temples, basically, their main service is to flatter wealthy people who then give donations so they can build big temples. And when you get big temples, you get a lot of people coming, and you, of course, take care of them, and that will lead to more donations, even a bigger temple. And it's just, the sky is the limit. The bigger the temple, the more you've saved the fallen souls. So I'm not saying that, all the devotees of the Hare Krishna movement fall into this category, but definitely they're kind of, some people are definitely flirting with it, where because people want religion, especially they want religion from a priest that just, showers blessings. Yeah, you're doing great. You're not really that Krishna conscious, but you're still a wonderful, great person. And so if you just flatter people, and especially people for whom this is their family religion, then, just, literally bhajanti, worship them. Well, in this case, like flatter them. And then they'll give you money, and then you can live nicely because you build a nice temple, and of course, you also could live very nicely, and rising tide lifts all boats, and so you have a nice life. So it's not that 5,000 years ago some people fell into this, but today no one would fall into that. So it's funny because when I was younger, I remember in the old days we used to live in temples and we would just go out all day and sell Prabhupada's books, or or chant in the street or whatever. It just seemed to us like obviously these verses are not for us because we're just preaching all day. We had very simple lives. I mean, there was hardly a piece of furniture in a Hare Krishna temple. I mean, it's not that there were like tables and chairs to eat. There were no couches, or it was just furniture free. It was basically floor culture. You'd sleep on the floor and you'd eat on the floor, and have serious talks on the floor. So let me just turn this off. Why did the sages worry about their cell phones? So, so back in the day, verses like this were just kind of something to point at the non-devotees and how foolish they were. But it's sort of come home to roost in many places, as they say. Now you read these verses and it kind of reminds you of something a little closer to home. It reminds you of something you may actually belong to or be a member of. So I think more than ever now, because as ISKCON becomes just a normal human society, in which, like any religion, most of the people are not strict practitioners. And therefore, so you have this combination where most people in any religion that gets to a certain size are not strict practitioners, and therefore uh, they, and they're not, nor philosophers. I mean, most devotees, most people who would say, yes, I am affiliated with ISKCON, are not strict practitioners nowadays. If you consider these huge congregations in certain parts of the world, so they're not necessarily strict practitioners, and uh, and because they're not strict practitioners, they don't just have pure spiritual desires. There is attachment to family and to all kinds of things, and some of them do have money, and so there's this pressure, sort of this downward pressure, to just satisfy the people who are providing. And so it's sort of like sing for your supper. And so we get the same kinds of pressures that basically are exerted on every larger scale religion. You get these pressures, and gradually, in some places, ISKCON starts to become the movement that we left. I'm sorry, ISKCON in some places starts to look like the religion we left to join ISKCON. I remember when we were young, that was one of our selling points. Yeah, this is not just a religion with doctrines and rituals, but is it really true? There's nowhere in ISKCON you can say that it's mostly focused on rituals and then, just teaching the doctrine. So, of course, self-criticism is not one of, the Hare Krishna movement's strong points, but there is actually a need for this. In fact, if a sannyasi, makes a legitimate critique, it's a good chance you'll be banned from that temple. So it's interesting. I mean, and it's from a socio-historical perspective, it's interesting. So that's what this verse is. So now we'll chant it together. It's very brilliant verse in terms of the meter and everything. Oh, do you want to look on some?
Oh, 225.
Yeah, it's verse 225 in the Bhagavatam. Chirani king patina santi dishanti bhiksham. 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 Naivangripa paravrta Saritopyashushan Naivangripa paravrta Saritopyashushan Naivangripa paravrta Saritopyashushan Naivangripa paravrta Saritopyashushan Rudha guha kimajito patino pasannan. 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 Kasmat pajanti kavayo dhanadurmadandhan. Kasmat bhajanti kavayo dhanadurmadandhan. Kasmat bhajanti kavayo dhanadurmadandhan. Kasmat bhajanti kavayo dhanadurmadandhan. This
Well, I can try. Chirani kim patina santi dishanti ke bhiksham.
Chirani king patina santi dishanti viksham.
Naibang ripa paravita sarito biya asusyam.
Naivangripa parabratak saritopyashushan.
Ruda guna
Uguha.
Ruda guha kimajito bhati nopasanan.
Rudha guha kimajito vatinopasannan.
Kasmat bhajanti kavajodana durmadandan.
Kasmad bhajanti kavayo dhanadurmadandhan. You can almost, I mean, the phonetics here are emphasizing the meaning. It's like Kasmad bhajanti kavayo dhanadurmadandhan. It's this is great literature. It's not only the most enlightening literature, just in terms of its composition. This is truly great literature on a global scale, and scholars recognize it as such. So we come from an extremely cultured tradition. Extremely, this is the highest level, even of just human culture in terms of literary composition. In addition to being the most uncompromising, powerful philosophy. So I mean, we have to do more than give out sweet balls. More comfort. So now let's read Prabhupada's translation and purport. Are there no torn clothes, that's Chidani, lying on the common road? Do the trees which exist for maintaining others, Padaprithak, no longer give alms and charity? Do the rivers, being dried up, no longer supply water to the thirsty? Are the caves of the mountains now closed? Or above all, does the Almighty Lord not protect, that's Ajita, the fully surrendered souls? Why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard earned wealth? So, Robert's purport. It's a very long, wow, very long purport. Maybe I'll just read the first part of the purport. The renounced order of life is never meant for begging or living at the cost of others as a parasite. Because as a sannyasi or as an older sannyasi, there are real opportunities. A sannyasi can go to hundreds of different temples around the world and basically not have to, and get a room to stay, get a free lunch, breakfast, actually get what you want. People give you gifts and you just give a little class and say nice things to people. And your life is, you're set for life. You don't have to actually, or you can go from temple to temple and, be very careful not to mention anything unpleasant, like that the Hare Krishna movement is not really succeeding in the Western world. Never say something like that because you'll disturb your clients and, continue with your peaceful, happy life. So it's interesting to see whether these verses will ever be, whether, devotees will ever apply these to the Hare Krishna movement. Well, Hare Krishna society, I should say. In other words, I'm not saying everyone is bad. I'm not saying everyone does it, but I'm saying, does this apply anywhere? Are there tendencies? It's not that there has to be full blown, just like, kicking back and just, flattering rich people, but are there tendencies along those lines? Because after all, if you're a preacher and you're living in palaces everywhere, if you're living in beautiful buildings and people are touching your feet and you're getting all the food you could ever want and anything you need, whether it's medical care or clothes or a new computer, someone is ready there to provide it for you. And obviously you don't want to tell these people anything which is going to offend them or make them feel bad or anything. And so, because after all, they are, in a sense, clients. I mean, they are the ones who are providing everything for you and building temples. And so, as far as heavy preaching, no, it would be inappropriate, it would be ungrateful, it would disturb people, and it would just be counterproductive. And so, basically, this problem has existed for thousands of years. And I think it would be ludicrous to think that when you spread a religion and that these cultural tendencies never manifest. Again, it doesn't mean everyone is bad. It doesn't mean everyone's a hypocrite. But these are powerful historical tendencies which are perennial. In other words, wherever or whenever you have a successful religion, these tendencies very powerfully manifest. And so, do we talk about it in the Hare Krishna movement? Do we apply it to ourselves, or is criticism strictly reserved for non-devotees? Is ISKCON a society on an international level which engages in vigorous self-criticism, or is it a society in many places where self-criticism is considered to be an offense? And sociologically speaking, what happens to an organization in which it's considered offensive and inappropriate to ever engage in self-criticism?
Can't grow. Can't change.
Can't survive.
Mm.
Or you can survive as something, but what are you surviving as? Anyway, just saying. So Prabhupada says, according to the dictionary, a parasite is a sycophant who lives at the cost of society without making any contribution to that society. The renounced order is meant for contributing something substantial to society and not depending on the earnings of the householders. On the contrary, acceptance of alms from the householders by the bona fide mendicant is an opportunity afforded by the saint for the tangible benefit of the donor. In the Sanatana Dharma institution, almsgiving to the mendicant is part of a householder's duty, and it is advised in the scriptures that the householders should treat the mendicant as their family children and should provide them with food, clothing, etc., without being asked. Pseudo mendicants, therefore, should not take advantage of the charitable disposition of the faithful householders. And of course, in India, this is an issue. The first duty of a person in the renounced order of life is to contribute some literary work for the benefit of the human being in order to give him realized direction towards self-realization. The first duty. Amongst the other duties in the renounced order of life of Srila Sanatana, Srila Rupa, and the other Goswamis of Vrindavan, the foremost duty to stars by them was to hold learned discourses amongst themselves at Seva Kunja, Vrindavan, the spot where Sri Radha Damodar temple was established by Srila Jiva Goswami, and where the actual samadhi tombs of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami are laid. For the benefit of all in human society, they left behind them immense literatures of transcendental importance. Similarly, all the acharyas who voluntarily accepted the renounced order of life aimed at benefiting human society and not at living a comfortable or irresponsible life at the cost of others. However, those who cannot give any contribution should not go to the householders for food. For such mendicants, asking bread from the householders are an insult to the highest order. Shukadeva Goswami gave this warning especially for those mendicants who adopt this line of profession to solve their economic problems. In ISKCON, of course, it's not so much because it's not easy to take sannyas. One has to have a track record of preaching. But in India, of course, you can imagine. Such mendicants are in abundance in the age of Kali. When a man becomes a mendicant willfully or by circumstances, he must be of firm faith and conviction that the Supreme Lord is the maintainer of all living beings everywhere in the universe. Why then would he neglect the maintenance of a surrendered soul? Why would the Lord neglect? Who is cent per cent engaged in the service of the Lord. A common master looks to the necessities of his servant. So how much more would the all-powerful, all-opulent Supreme Lord look after the necessities of life for a fully surrendered soul? Just one thing, little note, how language is degrading. Prabhupada used an expression which was common back in those days, cent per cent, cent meaning 100, less than ciento in Spanish, or saying in Portuguese and so on, cento in Italian. And so cent per cent means 100%. Now we say 100%, 5 syllables, and they say it in 3 syllables. Anyway, just a little note at how the efficiency of language is actually declining as people become less intelligent. So, a common master looks to the necessities of his servant, so how much more would the all-powerful, all-opulent Supreme Lord look after the necessities of life for a fully surrendered soul? The general rule is that a mendicant devotee will accept a simple small loincloth without asking anyone to give it in charity. He simply salvages it from the rejected torn cloth thrown in the street. When he is hungry, he may go to a magnanimous tree which drops fruits, and when he is thirsty, he may drink water from the flowing river. He does not require to live in a comfortable house, but should find a cave in the hills and not be afraid of jungle animals, keeping faith in God who lives in everyone's heart. The Lord may dictate to tigers and other jungle animals not to disturb his devotee. Of course, in this age, Prabhupada, we do accept big mansions. Prabhupada built big temples. He had his own quarters. And so this is a spirit, though. In other words, we don't literally walk around tree bark nowadays, but this is the spirit, that spirit of just living as simply as practical in the society we're in and focusing on preaching. That's the spirit. Haridas Thakur, a great devotee of Lord Sri Chaitanya, used to live in such a cave, and by chance a great venomous snake was a co-partner of the cave. Some admirer of Haridas Thakur Haridas, who had to visit the Thakur every day, feared the snake and suggested that the Thakur leave that place. Because his devotees were afraid of the snake and they were regularly visiting the cave, Thakur Haridas agreed to the proposal on their account. But as soon as this was settled, the snake actually crawled out of its hole in the cave and left the cave for good before everyone present. By the dictation of the Lord, who lived also within the heart of the snake gave preference to Haridas and decided to leave the place and not disturb him. So this is a tangible example of how the Lord gives protection to a bona fide devotee like Thakur Haridas. According to the regulations of the Sanatana Dharma institution, one is trained from the beginning to depend fully on the protection of the Lord in all circumstances. The path of renunciation is recommended for acceptance by one who is fully accomplished and fully purified in his existence. This stage is described also in the Bhagavad Gita as Daivi Sampat. A human being is required to accumulate Daivi Sampat or spiritual assets. Sampat means asset and Daivi means spiritual. Otherwise, the next alternative, Asuri Sampat, or material assets or demonic assets, will overcome him disproportionately, and thus one will be forced into the entanglement of different miseries of the material world. A sannyasi should always live alone, without company, and he must be fearless. He should never be afraid of living alone, although he is never alone. The Lord is residing in everyone's heart. Unless one is purified by the prescribed process, one will feel that he is alone. But a man in the renounced order of life must be purified by the process. Thus he will feel the presence of the Lord everywhere and will have nothing to fear, such as being without any company. Everyone can become a fearless and honest person if his very existence is purified by discharging the prescribed duty for each and every order of life. One can become fixed in one's prescribed duty by faithful oral reception of Vedic instructions and assimilation of the essence of Vedic knowledge by devotional service to the Lord. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, any questions? Powerful purport, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tough love. Dur prema. So we'll stop here. Thank you all for listening, wherever you are. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Srila Bhagavatam.